There's a particular kind of child you might have noticed in playgrounds, libraries, or family gatherings, while others cry when they fall or run to their parents when frightened. This child simply gets up, dusts themselves off, and continues playing. Adults admire them. They call them mature, responsible, independent. But no one asks why. A 5-year-old already knows how to swallow their tears. Self-soothing is a natural developmental milestone. Infants learn gradually to calm themselves without constant intervention. But some children are forced to master this skill far too early, not through gentle guidance, but through necessity. When caregivers are unavailable, overwhelmed, or emotionally absent, the child's nervous system makes a quiet calculation. No one is coming. I must handle this alone. This adaptation happens beneath conscious awareness. The toddler who wakes from nightmares learns to rock themselves back to sleep. The kindergartner who feels anxious at school learns to control their breathing in silence. These children become fluent in self-regulation before they can tie their shoes. And while this might look like strength, it's actually survival dressed as maturity. Psychologists recognize this pattern as premature emotional independence. The child's attachment system, designed to seek comfort from caregivers, rewires itself toward self-reliance. Neuroscience shows that repeated experiences of unmet needs during critical developmental windows can alter how the brain processes distress. The pathways that would normally reach outward for support instead loop inward, creating what researchers call compulsive self-sufficiency. If this perspective resonates, you can support the video by liking it. What makes this particularly complex is that the child often develops genuine competence. They learn to identify their emotions, name them, and manage them with precision that exceeds their years. Teachers praise their emotional intelligence. Parents rely on their stability. But beneath this polished exterior lives an unspoken belief: my needs are burdens, and expressing them risks abandonment. This belief doesn't announce itself in childhood. It hides behind helpfulness, politeness, and the quiet satisfaction adults feel when a child requires nothing. The child learns to translate their internal experience into something manageable, something that doesn't disrupt the fragile peace around them. Sadness becomes tiredness. Loneliness becomes preference for solitude. Fear becomes careful planning. As these children grow into adolescence and adulthood, the pattern deepens. They become the friend everyone turns to during crisis, yet they struggle to ask for help themselves. They offer emotional support with ease, but freeze when someone offers the same in return. Receiving care feels foreign, almost threatening, because it challenges the core identity they built, the one who handles everything alone. Comment early if this describes your experience. Attachment research provides insight into this dynamic. Secure attachment develops when caregivers consistently respond to a child's distress with comfort. But when responses are unpredictable or absent, children develop what's called avoidant attachment. They learn that expressing needs leads nowhere, so they minimize those expressions and maximize self-reliance. The neurobiology reflects this adaptation. Studies using brain imaging show that individuals with avoidant attachment patterns show reduced activation in regions associated with seeking social support during stress. The tragedy isn't that these individuals can't self-soothe, it's that they can only self-soothe. Their nervous system has become so efficient at managing distress independently that interdependence feels dangerous. Relationships become complicated because intimacy requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires trusting that someone will stay when you're not composed. Many people who learned to self-soothe too early struggle with a specific fear that their authentic emotional state will overwhelm others. They remember, perhaps unconsciously, moments when their childhood distress created visible discomfort in caregivers. A parent who sighed heavily when they cried. A guardian who said, "You're fine," when they clearly weren't. These moments taught them that their feelings were too much, and managing those feelings became their responsibility alone. This creates an interesting paradox in adult relationships. These individuals are often attracted to partners who need support because caretaking feels safer than being cared for. The dynamic is familiar. They provide stability while maintaining emotional distance. But when partners eventually ask for reciprocal vulnerability, the request can trigger intense anxiety. Allowing someone to witness unfiltered emotion feels like stepping off a cliff. Type YES if this helped you understand something about yourself. The professional world often rewards this pattern. People who learned early self-soothing excel in high-pressure environments. They remain calm during chaos, make decisions without emotional flooding, and rarely require reassurance. Organizations value this stability, but the cost appears in burnout, in the exhaustion that comes from never allowing yourself to be held by anything other than your own discipline. Some might wonder whether this adaptation is entirely negative. After all, emotional regulation is a valuable skill. The distinction lies in flexibility. Healthy self-soothing exists alongside the capacity to seek comfort from others. Problematic self-soothing is rigid, compulsive, the only option available. It's the difference between choosing independence and being trapped in it. Healing this pattern doesn't mean becoming helpless or dependent. It means expanding the range of responses available during distress. This requires confronting the underlying belief that needing others is dangerous. Therapy can help, particularly approaches that focus on reworking attachment patterns. But the process is gradual and often uncomfortable because it involves allowing yourself to need someone, to ask for help, to accept comfort without immediately reciprocating. If someone you know might benefit from this, feel free to share it. One sign of progress is learning to tolerate the vulnerability of being supported. For someone who learned early self-soothing, simply sitting with another person's care without deflecting, minimizing, or immediately offering something in return represents profound growth. The nervous system must learn that dependence isn't collapse, that needing others doesn't erase competence, that tears don't equal weakness. Another aspect of healing involves grieving. Not dramatic, theatrical grief, but the quiet acknowledgement that something was missing. These individuals must mourn the childhood where distress was met with comfort, where tears were allowed, where someone else held the weight for a while. This grieving process isn't about blaming parents or caregivers, many of whom were doing their best with limited resources. It's about honoring the loss and making space for what's needed now. Interestingly, many people who learned to self-soothe too early find that their greatest strength becomes available only after they address this pattern. Once they can access both independence and interdependence, their emotional intelligence transforms from a survival mechanism into genuine wisdom. They become people who understand both the power of self-reliance and the grace of mutual support. If this gave you clarity, comment capable below. The child who learned to dust themselves off and keep playing didn't choose that response. They adapted to an environment that required it, and that adaptation served them well in many ways. But adulthood offers a different possibility, the chance to choose rather than default, to build relationships where vulnerability is met with presence, to discover that needing others doesn't diminish strength but completes it. You can't undo the past. The neural pathways formed in childhood remain part of your architecture, but the brain retains plasticity throughout life. New patterns can form. The person who once handled everything alone can learn to share the load without losing themselves. The one who self-soothed in silence can discover what it means to be soothed by another without fear. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about integrating what was always there, the part that knows how to stand alone and the part that longs to be held. Both are real, both are valid, and both deserve space in a life that's finally safe enough to contain them. If this exploration resonated with your experience, support this work by liking the video. Have you ever recognized the moment when you realized you'd been handling everything alone for too long? Share your reflection in the comments. And if you value psychological awareness presented with care and depth, subscribe for more documentaries that honor the complexity of being human.